Captain Daeho Kim sat in his command chair on Luna Station, watching the stars through the large viewing window. The coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't care. Something big was coming. He could feel it in his bones. The communication alert beeped 3 times. That meant it was from the Galactic Council. Daeho's stomach twisted. The Council never called Earth unless they wanted something, and they always wanted something humans didn't want to give. "Sir, incoming priority message from the High Arbitrator," said Lieutenant Boram Lee from her station. Her voice was steady, but Daeho could hear the worry underneath. "Put it on the main screen," Daeho said. The screen filled with the image of a creature that still gave humans nightmares. The High Arbitrator was 12 feet tall and made of living crystal. Light moved through its body like blood through veins. When it spoke, the sound came from everywhere at once. "Greetings, Captain Kim of the primitive species known as humans," the Arbitrator said. Its voice sounded like breaking glass. "I bring word from the Galactic Council to your leaders." Daeho stood up slowly. "I'm listening, Arbitrator. Your species has been part of our great council for 30 Earth years. You have enjoyed our protection and wisdom. Now it is time for you to pay what you owe us." The words hit Daeho like a punch to the gut. He had been expecting this day, but hearing it still hurt. "What exactly does the council want?" Daeho asked, even though he already knew it would be bad. The Arbitrator's crystal body pulsed with bright light. "Earth will provide tribute to the council. You will give us 40% of everything you make in your factories. You will give us 30% of your people to work for us, and you will give us complete access to human genetic material for our research. You want nearly half our production, a third of our people, and our DNA?" Daeho said. "That's not tribute. That's slavery. Every species pays this price when they join the council," the Arbitrator said. "The Veltar paid it 3,000 years ago. The Gakron paid it 2,000 years ago. The Zephyrians paid it 1,000 years ago. Now humans will pay it too. And if we refuse?" The Arbitrator's laugh sounded like a mountain falling down. "Then you will learn why no species has ever refused the council. Your world will burn, your people will serve us anyway, and your name will be forgotten." The screen went black. Daeho stared at his reflection in the dark display. Behind him, his crew was very quiet. They had all heard the message. They all knew what it meant. "Get me Admiral Park," Daeho said. "Emergency channel." Within minutes, Admiral Sunja Park's face appeared on the screen. She was in her office on Earth, and Daeho could see the worry lines around her eyes. "I saw the message, Daeho," she said. "How much time do we have?" 6 months, Admiral." Sunja was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "Contact President Lee and Dr. Choi. Tell them to meet me in Secure Room 7 in 2 hours. And Daeho?" "Yes, Admiral?" "Activate Protocol 7. Daeho felt a chill run down his spine. Protocol 7 was something they had hoped never to use. It was the plan they had been working on since the day humans first met the Galactic Council. The plan they had kept secret for 30 years. 2 hours later, President Hyunwoo Lee sat in the most secure room on Earth. With him were Admiral Park and Chief Science Advisor Min-Ah Choi. The room had no windows and walls thick enough to stop nuclear bombs. What they were about to discuss could never leave this room. "Show him the message," Admiral Park said. President Lee watched the recording of the Arbitrator's demands. His face got darker with each word. When it finished, he was quiet for a long time. 40% of our production, 30% of our people, and our DNA, he finally said. "They want to turn us into slaves." "Every species in the council was forced to pay this tribute," Dr. Choi said. "That's how the system works. The strong take from the weak." "But we're not weak," President Lee said. "Are we?" Admiral Park smiled. It was not a nice smile. "No, Mr. President, we are not weak. We've been pretending to be weak for 30 years, but we are not weak at all." She pressed a button on the table. The wall screen showed images that made President Lee's eyes go wide. Massive ships being built in secret, weapons that could crack planets, soldiers trained in fighting techniques the galaxy had never seen. For 30 years, every human who went to Council Worlds was really a spy, Admiral Park said. "Every trade deal we made gave us access to their technology. Every cultural exchange taught us their weaknesses. Every day we seemed weak and stupid, we were actually learning how to destroy them." President Lee stared at the screen. "How many people know about this?" "Everyone who needs to know," Dr. Choi said. "Our best scientists, our best soldiers, our best spies. We've been preparing for this moment since the day we joined the Council. And you really think we can win against 12 alien civilizations?" Admiral Park's smile got wider. Mr. President, those 12 civilizations have been comfortable for thousands of years. They haven't fought a real war in centuries. They think their technology makes them unbeatable. They think their numbers make them unstoppable. But they've never fought humans before, Dr. Choi added. They've never fought a species that turns every gift into a weapon, every friendship into intelligence, every moment of peace into preparation for war. President Lee was quiet for a long time. Finally, he looked up at Admiral Park. What do you need from me? Permission to activate the full plan, Mr. President. Permission to show the Galactic Council what humans really are. President Lee thought about his children, his grandchildren, and all the humans who would live free or die as slaves depending on what happened next. You have it, he said. Send our answer to the Council. Admiral Park nodded. What should our answer be, sir? President Lee stood up. For the first time since the message arrived, he smiled. Tell them no. Dr. Ji-hoon Bae walked through the halls of the Xenological Research Division like he did every morning. To anyone watching, he looked like a normal scientist going to work. The aliens watching from their embassy didn't know that this building held Earth's biggest secrets. Good morning, Doctor, said his assistant, Dr. Soo-jin Park. She handed him a coffee and a data pad. The council representatives will be here at 10 o'clock. Ji-hoon nodded and looked at the data pad. It showed exactly what the aliens expected to see. Reports about human attempts to understand alien technology, charts showing how much humans struggled with basic galactic science, documents proving that humans were still primitive compared to council species. All of it was fake. Is everything ready for the show? Ji-hoon asked quietly. All the fake labs are prepared. The actors know their roles. The Veltar representative will see exactly what he expects to see, Soo-jin replied. Ji-hoon smiled. The Veltar were crystal beings who thought they were the smartest species in the galaxy. They had been studying humans for 30 years, trying to understand how such a primitive race had been allowed into the council. They never suspected that humans had been studying them right back. At exactly 10 o'clock, the Veltar representative arrived. His name was something humans couldn't pronounce, so they called him Crystal One. He was 8 feet tall and his body sparkled with inner light. He thought he was beautiful. Humans thought he looked like a walking chandelier. Greetings, Dr. Bae, Crystal One said in his musical voice. I am here to inspect your research progress. Of course, Honored One, Ji-hoon said, bowing deeply. We are grateful for your guidance. Ji-hoon led Crystal One through the fake labs. In one room, human scientists pretended to struggle with basic energy equations. In another, they acted confused by simple gravity manipulation. Crystal One watched everything with satisfaction. Your species learns slowly, Crystal One said, but you show promise. Perhaps in a few hundred years you will understand basic galactic science. We hope so, Ji-hoon said humbly. Your people are so wise. We have much to learn. What Crystal One didn't see were the real labs 50 floors underground. There, humanity's best scientists worked with technology that would make the council wet themselves in fear. But that was a secret that would stay hidden until the right moment. Meanwhile, in orbit around Mars, Commander Yoonji Nam was putting on her own show. Her space station looked like a simple mining operation. Council inspectors had visited it dozens of times and always saw the same thing. Humans digging rocks out of asteroids with primitive equipment. They never looked close enough to see that the mining equipment was actually weapons factories. The cargo ships were actually warships. The primitive equipment was actually the most advanced manufacturing system in the galaxy. Commander, we have 3 council observation ships watching us, reported Lieutenant Jae-hyun. Oh, let them watch, Yoonji said. All they'll see is humans being human. On the viewing screen, Yoonji could see her people loading containers onto ships. The council observers thought the containers held raw minerals. Actually, they held weapons powerful enough to crack moons. But the council would never know that until it was too late. Back on Earth, Tae Min-yoon was having lunch with Ambassador Kreetal of the Gakron Hive. The Gakron looked like giant insects, and they thought humans were about as smart as the bugs they ate for breakfast. Your species puzzles me. Tae-min, Kreetal said, clicking his mandibles. You seem so eager to please, yet so slow to understand simple concepts. Tae-min laughed and nearly spilled his drink. I know, Ambassador. We humans are pretty stupid compared to you, Gakron. That's why we need the Council's wisdom. Kreetal's insect eyes gleamed. Indeed. Your tribute will help fund important Council research. Your people will learn much as our servants. I'm sure they will, Taemin agreed. Inside, he was thinking about all the ways he was going to enjoy watching Kretal's expression when the truth came out. For 30 years, Taemin had played the role of the bumbling human diplomat. He asked stupid questions, made embarrassing mistakes, and let the aliens treat him like a child. The council species thought he was proof that humans were too primitive for real responsibility. They had no idea that Taemin spoke 17 alien languages fluently, had 3 degrees in xenopsychology, and could kill a Gakron warrior with his bare hands. They definitely didn't know that every mistake he made was carefully planned to gather intelligence. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Park stood in the command center of humanity's most secret base. The base didn't exist on any map. The people who worked there didn't exist in any records. The weapons they built didn't exist in anyone's nightmares. Status report, Admiral Park said. Phase 1 is complete, reported General Dong-hyun Ryu. All council species have been infiltrated. Our people are in position on every major world. Phase 2? Admiral Park asked. Ready to activate on your command, said Intelligence Director So-young Kim. Every council military installation, every communication network, every power grid has been mapped and targeted. Admiral Park nodded. For 30 years, while the council thought they were civilizing primitive humans, humanity had been seeding their entire civilization with spies, saboteurs, and hidden weapons. Every human who went to a council world had a secret mission. Every cultural exchange was really an intelligence operation. What about the sleeper agents? Admiral Park asked. All in position and awaiting orders, So-young replied. We have people in every council government, every military command, every research facility. When we activate them, the council's entire command structure will collapse in hours. Admiral Park looked at the star map showing council space. Thousands of red dots marked human operatives, hidden weapons, and sabotage points. The council had no idea that their entire civilization was riddled with human agents. And they still think we're primitive? Admiral Park asked. General Ryu laughed. Yesterday, a Zephyrian general told me that humans would make excellent servants because we're too stupid to cause trouble. Perfect, Admiral Park said. Keep it that way until the moment we reveal the truth. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Young-Soo Kang was saying goodbye to his alien crewmates on the council exploration ship Brightwing. He had served with them for 5 years, and they thought he was their friend. It has been an honor serving with you. Young-Soo, said Captain Velthara, a tall blue being from the Etherian Collective. You have shown that humans can be useful despite your limitations. Thank you, Captain, Young-Soo said. I've learned so much from all of you. What he had really learned was exactly how council ships worked, how their weapons fired, how their shields operated, and how to disable all of it from the inside. He had also planted 17 different types of sabotage devices throughout the ship. When the time came, the Brightwing would be humanity's, not the council's. Back on Earth, Dr. Min-Ah Choi was putting the finishing touches on humanity's greatest secret. For 30 years, while pretending to struggle with alien science, human scientists had been building something the galaxy had never seen before. Is it ready? Asked President Lee, who had come to see the final preparations. More than ready, Mr. President, Min-Ah replied. The council thinks our technology is centuries behind theirs. They have no idea what we've actually built. President Lee looked at the device that would change everything. It didn't look like much, just a simple metal sphere about the size of a basketball. But that sphere contained enough power to reshape the balance of galactic civilization. When do we reveal the truth? President Lee asked. Soon, sir, Min-Ah said. Very soon the entire galaxy will learn what humans are really capable of. The countdown to humanity's reckoning had begun. The council thought they were collecting tribute from a primitive species. Instead, they were about to learn the most important lesson in galactic history. Never underestimate humans. The council fleet arrived in Sol system with all the confidence of predators coming to collect easy prey. 12 different species had sent their ships, a massive armada that blocked out the stars. High Arbitrator Zelthon stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the small blue planet that had dared to say no. Open communications with the human homeworld, Zelthon commanded. His crystal body pulsed with angry red light. Admiral Soonja Park appeared on his screen. She was sitting calmly in her chair, hands folded, looking like she was discussing the weather instead of facing the destruction of her entire species. Greetings, Admiral Park, Zelthon said. I trust you have reconsidered your foolish refusal of our generous offer. I have, Admiral Park replied. And our answer is still no. Zelthon's body flared brighter. Around him, his officers made sounds of shock. In the 3,000 years of Council history, no species had ever said no twice. You misunderstand the situation, human, Zelthon said. Look around your system. We have brought 500 ships. You have perhaps 50. This is not a negotiation. This is a collection. Admiral Park smiled. It was the same smile a shark might give to a swimming tourist. You're right, she said. This is a collection. But you're wrong about who's collecting what. Before Zelthon could ask what she meant, his tactical officer screamed in alarm. The asteroid belt around Sol had just come alive. What the Council had thought were dead rocks were actually human ships, carefully disguised and waiting. Impossible, whispered Commander Gaktor of the Hive ships. Our sensors showed nothing but mining equipment. Captain Youngsu Kang's voice came over the communication channel from inside the Council fleet itself. He was broadcasting from the Bright Wing, the exploration ship where he had served for 5 years. Hello, Council fleet, Youngsu said cheerfully. This is Captain Kang of the Earth Defense Force. I've been looking forward to this moment for a very long time. Kang, what are you doing? Demanded Captain Velthara. You are committing treason against the Council. Actually, Youngsu replied, I'm committing loyalty to my species. Computer, activate Prometheus protocol. All across the Council fleet, human sleeper agents activated at once. The exploration ship Brightwing suddenly turned its weapons on the Gakron vessels beside it. The research station Deep Thought began jamming Council communications. The trading post New Harmony revealed hidden weapons and opened fire. But the real shock came when Earth's primitive kinetic weapons opened fire. The Council had been laughing at human slug throwers for 30 years, calling them crude compared to energy weapons. They weren't laughing now. The first railgun projectile hit the Veldtar Dreadnought Star of Glory at nearly the speed of light. The ship's energy shields, designed to stop plasma and laser fire, barely slowed down the solid metal rod. It punched through the hull like paper and came out the other side, taking half the ship with it. Our shields are useless, screamed the Star of Glory's captain. These weapons ignore energy barriers completely. Admiral Zelthon watched in horror as his mighty fleet began to fall apart. Human ships came at them from every direction, using tactics the Council had never seen before. They didn't form neat battle lines like civilized species. They swarmed like angry insects, each ship acting independently but somehow perfectly coordinated. How are they doing this? Zelthon demanded. Where did they learn to fight like this? Dr. Sung Min Han's voice answered him from the human flagship. We learned by watching you, arbitrator. For 30 years we've been recording every military exercise, every battle simulation, every tactical manual the Council has produced. We know exactly how you fight because you taught us. The truth hit Zelthon like a physical blow. Every human observer at Council military academies had been a spy. Every cultural exchange student had been gathering intelligence. Every trade mission had been mapping defenses. You planned this, Zelthon said. For 30 years you planned this. Longer, Admiral Park replied. We started planning this the day we first met the Council. Humans have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We hoped you would treat us as equals. We prepared for you to treat us as slaves. The battle raged across the Sol system, but it wasn't really a battle. It was a demonstration. The Council fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that fought like nothing they had ever seen. Gakron bioships, grown instead of built, found themselves being eaten alive by human nanites. Zephyrian trade vessels discovered that their cargo holds were full of human saboteurs. Etherian exploration ships watched their own computers turn against them as hidden human viruses activated. Fleet Commander J-1 O coordinated the human response from his command ship hidden inside Jupiter's Great Red Spot. The massive storm had been hiding human installations for decades, including the construction yards where Earth's real fleet had been built. Council forces are breaking formation, reported his tactical officer. They're trying to retreat. Let some of them go, J-1 said. We want witnesses. The galaxy needs to know what happens when someone threatens humanity. Commander Yoonji Nam's mining station revealed its true nature as a battleship factory. The harmless-looking facility opened like a flower, releasing dozens of human dreadnoughts that had been built inside hollowed-out asteroids. Each ship was larger than anything in the Council fleet, and armed with weapons that shouldn't have been possible. Arbitrator, called Admiral Gelvan of the Zephyrian forces. We must retreat. These humans are not what we thought they were. Zelthon looked around his bridge. Half his officers were dead or dying. His beautiful crystal ship was cracked and bleeding atmosphere. The humans weren't just winning. They were toying with the Council fleet like cats playing with mice. This is impossible, Zelthon said. You were primitive. You were weak. You were nothing. Captain Daeho Kim's voice came over the communication channel. He was speaking from Luna Station, which had just revealed massive weapons batteries that had been disguised as communication arrays. We were never weak, Daeho said. We were learning. Every insult you gave us, every time you called us primitive, every moment you treated us like children, we were studying you. Learning your weaknesses. Preparing for this day. The Council fleet's retreat turned into a rout. Ships fled in all directions, abandoning their wounded and leaving behind centuries of military pride. But Intelligence Director So-Young Kim had prepared for this too. Activate the tracking protocols. So-Young ordered from her secret command center. Every Council ship that escapes needs to carry our message home. Microscopic human devices attached themselves to the fleeing ships. Each device was smaller than a grain of sand but contained enough technology to monitor, record, and report everything it saw. The Council would carry human spies back to their homeworlds without ever knowing it. As the last Council ships disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Park stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the wreckage floating in space. The battle had lasted only 6 hours, but it had changed everything. Casualties? Admiral Park asked. Light, reported her communications officer. We lost 12 ships and 300 people. The Council lost over 200 ships and 40,000 crew members. Admiral Park nodded. The numbers told the story. Humans hadn't won because they were stronger or had better technology. They had won because they understood something the Council had forgotten over thousands of years of easy dominance. War wasn't about having the biggest guns or the most ships. War was about understanding your enemy better than they understood you, and humanity had spent 30 years learning everything there was to know about the Council, while giving them nothing real in return. What's our next move? Asked Captain Youngsu, who had successfully captured the Bright Wing and was now flying it as a prize of war. Admiral Park smiled. Now we show the galaxy what happens when you try to make humans into slaves. The Council wanted tribute. They're going to get exactly what they deserve. News of the Battle of Sol spread through the galaxy faster than the speed of light. On every Council homeworld, the impossible reports arrived at the same time. The primitive humans had destroyed a third of the Council's combined fleet in 6 hours. High Arbitrator. Zelthon limped his damaged ship back to SciFiPrime, the crystal capital of the Council. His beautiful ship looked like it had been chewed up and spit out by a monster. The proud crystal spires of his homeworld reflected his shame as he landed. How? Demanded Supreme Chancellor Krivel, the oldest and most powerful Veltar in existence. How did the humans do this to us? Zelthon's crystal body flickered with embarrassment. They were prepared, Supreme Chancellor. They knew our tactics, our weapons, our formations. It was like fighting an enemy who could read our minds. What Zelthon didn't know was that humans actually could read their minds, not through psychic powers, but through 30 years of careful intelligence gathering. Every Council communication had been intercepted and decoded. Every military manual had been stolen and studied. Every training exercise had been watched and recorded. Dr. Sungmin Han sat in his laboratory on Earth, surrounded by screens showing data from across the galaxy. Each fleeing Council ship carried human nanobots that were now spreading through their networks like viruses, copying every file and recording every conversation. How much do we know about their military capabilities now? Asked Intelligence Director So-Young Kim. Everything, Sungmin replied. Troop numbers, ship locations, weapon specifications, defensive positions. The Council has no military secrets left. On the other side of the galaxy, the Gakran Hive was having its own crisis meeting. The insect-like aliens who had ruled through fear for thousands of years were now afraid themselves. The humans used some kind of biological weapon, reported Swarm Commander Niktal. Our bioships were eaten from the inside out. Queen Mother Vexara clicked her mandibles in worry. Impossible. Our organic technology is immune to all known pathogens. Not to human pathogens, Niktal said. They created artificial diseases specifically designed to kill our ships. Diseases that don't exist in nature. What the Gakran didn't realize was that humans had been studying their biotechnology for decades. Every trade sample, every cultural exchange, every scientific cooperation had given humanity pieces of the puzzle. When they finally put it together, they created viruses that could destroy Gakran ships from the inside. Meanwhile, Admiral Park was putting the next phase of humanity's plan into action. The victory at Seoul had been impressive, but it was just the beginning. The real war was about to start. Status report on Operation Pandora, Admiral Park said to her assembled commanders. General Dong-hyun Ryu pulled up a holographic map of Council space. All sleeper cells are in position. We have operatives on every major world, in every important facility, and inside every government. The map showed thousands of red dots scattered across dozens of star systems. Each dot represented a human agent who had spent years, sometimes decades, building a cover identity and gaining access to critical infrastructure. What about the liberation fleets? Admiral Park asked. Fleet Commander Jae-won-oh smiled grimly. Already moving. The Council thinks we only had 50 ships in Sol's system. They have no idea about the reserve fleets we built in secret. Hidden shipyards throughout human space had been working for 30 years, building vessels in asteroid belts and empty systems where Council patrols never went. The ships looked like nothing the galaxy had ever seen, because they had been designed by humans who didn't care about looking impressive. They only cared about winning. On Zephyria, the trade capital of the galaxy, Director Mi Young-jung was having coffee with her Zephyrian business partner. To anyone watching, she looked like a successful human trader who had adapted well to galactic commerce. Nobody suspected that she was actually Colonel Young of Earth Military Intelligence. The humans really surprised everyone, her partner, Trader Kelhan, said nervously. I never thought they had it in them. Neither did I, Mi Young lied smoothly. But you know humans. We're full of surprises. What Kelhan didn't know was that Mi Young had been systematically mapping Zephyrian trade networks for 15 years. Every shipping route, every storage facility, every financial institution had been cataloged and prepared for disruption. When the signal came, galactic commerce would collapse in hours. The signal came at exactly midnight, Galactic Standard Time. Intelligence Director So Young Kim sat in her command center deep beneath Earth's surface, looking at a wall of screens showing Council worlds across the galaxy. Her finger hovered over a single button that would change everything. All units, this is Control, she said into her microphone. Execute Operation Prometheus. Repeat, execute Operation Prometheus. Across the galaxy, human sleeper agents who had lived quiet lives for decades suddenly became very dangerous. Power grids failed as human engineers activated hidden shutdown codes. Communication networks went silent as human technicians introduced carefully crafted viruses. Military bases went dark as human janitors revealed themselves to be elite soldiers. On Veltar Prime, the beautiful crystal cities that had stood for millennia suddenly lost power. The Veltar had built their civilization around energy manipulation, but they had never imagined that the human maintenance workers in their power stations were actually saboteurs. The entire eastern continent is without power, reported Emergency Coordinator Thelvin. All backup systems are failing simultaneously. Supreme Chancellor Crivel watched from his crystal palace as his homeworld descended into chaos. How is this possible? Our systems are protected by quantum encryption. What he didn't know was that the primitive human mathematician who had helped design those encryption systems 30 years ago was actually Dr. Si-jin Park of Earth's cryptographic division. Every security code, every protective protocol had been built with hidden backdoors that only humans knew about. The Gakran hive worlds faced a different nightmare. Their bioships, grown in vast orbital gardens, began dying as human-created viruses spread through their organic networks. The diseases attacked the ship's nervous systems, leaving them brain-dead and drifting. Our entire third fleet is gone, reported Swarm Commander Kelthera. The bioships are dying faster than we can quarantine them. Queen Mother Vexara watched her empire crumble as the viruses spread. Call back all our ships. Seal our borders. The humans are using biological warfare. But it was too late. The viruses had been designed to spread through Gakran communication networks, infecting every ship that received a message from an infected vessel. Within hours, the entire Gakran navy was floating dead in space. On the peaceful Etherian worlds, The blue-skinned scholars who prize knowledge above all else discovered that their vast computer networks had been completely compromised. Every file, every research project, every piece of accumulated wisdom was now being copied and transmitted to Earth. "They're stealing everything," whispered Archive Keeper Lunder as he watched centuries of research disappear from his computers. Thousands of years of accumulated knowledge gone. Dr. Heejin Lim watched the data flow into Earth's computers from her secure facility. The Etherians had the galaxy's most advanced information technology, but they had never imagined that the quiet human students who had studied in their universities were actually intelligence operatives. "How much are we getting?" asked President Lee, who had come to witness the operation. "Everything," Heejin replied. "Scientific research, historical records, military intelligence, economic data. The entire accumulated knowledge of galactic civilization is now in our hands." The economic warfare was even more devastating. Human traders who had seemed harmless for decades revealed that they had been systematically infiltrating every major financial institution in Council space. When they activated their hidden programs, galactic commerce didn't just slow down, it reversed. Trade routes that had functioned for millennia suddenly became useless as human-controlled systems rerouted cargo to empty space. Banking networks crashed as human viruses transferred funds to accounts that didn't exist. Stock markets collapsed as trading algorithms turned against their creators. Within 24 hours of Operation Prometheus beginning, the Council's mighty civilization was on its knees. Their military was crippled, their communications were down, their power grids were failing, and their economy was in free fall. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. As Council leaders tried to coordinate their response, they discovered that humans weren't just attacking their infrastructure. They were liberating their slaves. General Dong Hyun Ryu's liberation fleets emerged from hyperspace around a dozen different worlds simultaneously. These weren't the crude mining ships the Council expected, but sleek warships crewed by humans who had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. "This is General Ryu of the Earth Liberation Force," he broadcast to the slave colonies. "Your masters can no longer protect you. Any species that wants freedom, we offer you a place in our fight." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had served the Council for centuries rose up in rebellion, joining human forces in attacking their former masters. The galaxy's carefully maintained order crumbled as millions of oppressed beings tasted freedom for the first time. The galaxy was burning, and humanity held all the matches. Supreme Chancellor Krevel of the Veltar Empire stood in what remained of his crystal palace, watching his homeworld descend into chaos through cracked windows. The beautiful spires that had reached toward the stars for millennia now lay shattered on the ground. His people, who had once commanded energy itself, cowered in the dark as their power systems remained dead. "Status report," Krevel demanded of his surviving advisors. 40% of our cities are without power," reported General Thelkar. "All military installations are compromised. Our fleets are scattered and unable to coordinate." "And sir," he paused, afraid to continue. "What?" Krevel's crystal body pulsed with angry light. "The humans are offering asylum to our worker populations. Entire cities are evacuating to human-controlled zones." Krevel couldn't believe what he was hearing. The Veltar had ruled through superiority for 3,000 years. Their subjects had always known their place. Now, common workers were choosing human freedom over Veltar order. Covert operations. Commander Wonho Shin watched the exodus from his hidden command post on SciFiPrime. For 20 years, he had lived as a simple maintenance worker in the crystal city of Lumthara. Now he was coordinating the evacuation of 2 million civilians to human ships. "Transport 7 is loaded and ready," reported his team leader, Captain Boram Lee, who had spent 15 years pretending to be a cleaning lady in the Veltar government building. "Send them to the Liberation Fleet," Wonho ordered, "and activate the final phase charges." Across the city, explosive charges that had been placed over decades began detonating. But these weren't random acts of terrorism. Each explosion was carefully planned to destroy military targets, while leaving civilian areas untouched. The Veltar military infrastructure crumbled, but the people remained safe. On the other side of the galaxy, Queen Mother Vexara of the Gakron Hive was facing her own nightmare. Her bioships, the living vessels that had been the pride of her civilization, were dying in massive numbers. The human-created viruses spread through her fleets like wildfire, turning her greatest weapons into floating coffins. How many ships have we lost? Vexara asked her swarm commanders. 60% of the Third Fleet, 40% of the Second, and the entire First Fleet is quarantined, reported swarm leader Kricktal. The viruses are spreading faster than we can contain them. What Vexara didn't know was that the viruses had been designed by Dr. Heejin Lim specifically to exploit weaknesses in Gakron biotechnology. Every trade sample the Gakron had shared with humans over the years had been carefully analyzed and weaponized. Can we create a cure? Vexara asked desperately. The human viruses are unlike anything in nature, Kricktal replied. They adapt faster than our immune systems can respond. It's as if they were designed by intelligence that understands our biology better than we do. That was exactly what had happened. Human scientists had spent 30 years studying Gakron genetics, learning how their bioships grew and functioned. When they created the viruses, they built in the ability to evolve specifically to counter Gakron defenses. But the real genius of Operation Prometheus wasn't the military strikes or the sabotage. It was the economic warfare. Dr. Hyojin Lim had spent decades analyzing the galactic economy, identifying every critical choke point and dependency. When she activated her hidden programs, the entire financial system of the Council collapsed, like a house of cards. The Zephyrian Trade Federation has declared bankruptcy, reported economic analyst Min-Jun Park from his secure bunker on Earth. Their entire banking system crashed when we activated the embedded viruses in their trading algorithms. President Lee stared at the economic report streaming across his screens. How is this possible? Their economy was supposed to be too big to fail. It was, Min-Jun explained. But over 30 years we've been quietly making ourselves indispensable to their operation. Every major trade route now depends on human-controlled systems. Every critical financial transaction goes through servers we can access. When we shut down our cooperation, their entire economy stopped functioning. On Zephyria, trader Kelhan stared at his empty bank accounts in disbelief. Yesterday he had been one of the richest beings in the galaxy. Today his wealth had simply disappeared into the digital void. Where did the money go? He demanded of his human business partner, not knowing that Director Mi-Young Jung was actually a colonel in Earth's intelligence service. I don't know. Mi-Young lied smoothly. The systems are completely crashed. Maybe it's just a temporary glitch, but it wasn't a glitch. The money was being transferred to accounts controlled by the newly liberated slave species, giving them the resources they needed to build their own civilizations free from council control. The liberation campaigns were proving even more successful than humanity had hoped. General Donghyun Ryu stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching another former slave world celebrate its freedom. Status report on Liberation Fleet 7, he requested. The Corvani system has been secured, reported his communications officer. The local Veltar garrison surrendered without firing a shot. The Corvani population is requesting to join the Human Alliance. Donghyun smiled. The Corvani had been enslaved by the Veltar for over 1,000 years, forced to mine crystals for their masters' cities. Now they were free and they wanted to help humanity liberate other oppressed species. Grant their request, Donghyun said, and provide them with defensive weapons. The Council might try to retake their world, but the Council was in no position to retake anything. Their military forces were scattered and demoralized. Their communication networks were compromised, and their subject species were rebelling faster than they could respond. On the peaceful Etherian worlds, Archive Keeper Lundar watched helplessly as centuries of accumulated knowledge disappeared from his computers. The blue-skinned scholars had always believed that information wanted to be free, but they hadn't expected humans to take that philosophy quite so literally. They're copying everything, Lundar reported to the Etherian Council. Scientific research, historical records, philosophical treatises. Nothing is safe. What the Etherians didn't realize was that the human students who had studied in their universities for decades were actually some of Earth's most brilliant minds. They had learned everything the Etherians had to teach, then improved on it, then used it against its creators. Dr. Si-Jin Park, one of those former students, now sat in her laboratory on Earth, analyzing Etherian quantum computing technology. The Etherians had developed computers that could process information at speeds that seemed impossible, but they had never thought to use them for warfare. Can we adapt their quantum processors for military use? Asked Admiral Park during her daily briefing. Already done, Sijin replied. We can now calculate battle outcomes millions of times faster than any council computer. We'll know what they're going to do before they do. The most shocking aspect of humanity's offensive wasn't its scope or its success, but its restraint. Despite having the power to exterminate the council species entirely, humans were being remarkably merciful to non-combatants. Strategic analyst Mi-Jin Park had been very clear about this in her planning documents. We want to defeat the council's military and government structures while preserving civilian populations. Dead civilizations can't learn from their mistakes, and we want the galaxy to understand exactly why this happened. This policy paid unexpected dividends when Etherian civilians began defecting to human-controlled zones. Unlike the Council, which ruled through fear and intimidation, humans offered genuine partnership to species that chose cooperation over conflict. The Etherian University on Felmora has requested to join our research alliance, reported Science Advisor Dr. Min-Ah Choi. They want to collaborate on developing new technologies. President Lee was amazed. They're volunteering to work with us? The Etherian scholars have always valued knowledge above politics, Min-Ah explained. They've realized that humans aren't trying to conquer the galaxy, we're trying to free it. But not all council species were ready to accept the new reality. The Zephyrian Trade Federation, facing complete economic collapse, decided to make a desperate last stand. Activate the emergency war protocols, commanded Trademaster Kelvor from his mobile command ship. If we can't rule the galaxy, we'll destroy it before we let the humans have it. The Zephyrians began attacking their own trade routes, destroying stations and ships rather than letting them fall into human hands. It was a scorched earth policy born of desperation and spite. Commander Young-Soo Kang, now flying the captured council ship Brightwing, intercepted the Zephyrian attack fleet before they could destroy the critical trade hub at Nexus Station. Zephyrian vessels, this is Captain Kang of the Earth Defense Force. You are attacking civilian targets. Stand down immediately. We will not surrender our civilization to primitive humans, Trademaster Kelvor replied. Better death than slavery. Young-Soo shook his head sadly. You still don't understand, do you? We're not here to enslave you. We're here to free everyone, including your own people. The battle for Nexus Station lasted 3 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the Zephyrian attack fleet. 6 months after the Council's ultimatum, the galaxy looked nothing like it had before. The great crystal halls of the Council Station orbiting Veltar Prime were dark and empty. The beings who had once commanded 12 civilizations now sat in holding cells, waiting to face judgment for thousands of years of oppression. President Hyun-Woo Lee walked slowly through the abandoned council chambers, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind him followed Admiral Soonja Park and the new Galactic Alliance Council, representatives from 49 different species who had chosen freedom over tyranny. It's hard to believe this is the same place where they demanded our tribute, President Lee said, looking at the empty throne where the High Arbitrator had once sat. They never imagined this day would come, replied Ambassador Eugene Seo, who had once been dismissed as a naive human diplomat. For 3,000 years they ruled without question. They forgot that power without justice is just organized crime. The former council members were brought into the chamber in restraints. Supreme Chancellor Krivel of the Veltar, Queen Mother Vexara of the Gakron, Trademaster Kelvor of the Zephyrians, and 9 others who had once commanded the galaxy's destiny. You stand accused of crimes against galactic civilization, President Lee announced. Slavery, genocide, economic exploitation, and the systematic oppression of billions of sentient beings. Krivel's crystal body flickered with defiant light. You cannot judge us by your primitive human standards. We brought order to the galaxy. We created civilization from chaos. Admiral Park stepped forward. You created slavery and called it civilization. You created oppression and called it order. The 47 species we've liberated tell a different story. What followed wasn't a trial in the traditional sense. It was a reckoning. For 3 days, representatives from liberated species gave testimony about centuries of suffering under council rule. The Corvani spoke of their children taken as slaves. The Nathari told of their homeworld strip-mined to build council palaces. The Veltai described generations of forced labor in crystal foundries. Through it all, the former council leaders remained defiant, insisting they had brought stability to a chaotic galaxy. They never admitted that their stability had been built on the backs of enslaved civilizations. The verdict is unanimous, President Lee announced on the fourth day, guilty on all charges. However, this alliance believes in justice, not revenge. Instead of execution, the council leaders were sentenced to spend the rest of their lives rebuilding what they had destroyed. They would work alongside the species they had oppressed, learning firsthand what their victims had endured. Queen Mother Vexara clicked her mandibles in outrage. "You would make us into laborers? We are royalty." "No," Admiral Park replied. "You were tyrants. Now you're citizens, and citizens work for their place in civilization. The real work began after the trials ended. Building a new galactic government from the ashes of the old council was like trying to construct a building while living in it. Every decision affected billions of lives across dozens of star systems. Ambassador Yujin Seo found herself negotiating with species that had been enemies for millennia, trying to find common ground between civilizations that had vastly different values and needs. The Corvani want compensation for 1,000 years of slavery, she reported to President Lee during their daily briefing. The Ithorians want access to advanced technology. The Nathari want their homeworld restored. Everyone wants justice, but they all define justice differently. President Lee rubbed his temples. Leading one planet had been challenging enough. Leading a galactic alliance was giving him headaches that felt like they could crack his skull. "What do you recommend?" he asked. "Time," Yujin replied. "And patience. The council ruled through fear for 3,000 years. Building something better will take longer than destroying something worse." Dr. Minna Choi was facing similar challenges in the scientific community. The liberated species had different levels of technology, different approaches to research, and different ideas about how knowledge should be shared. "The Veltar want to keep their crystal technology secret," she reported. "The Gakron refuse to share their bioengineering methods. The Zephyrians claim their trade algorithms are proprietary." "And what do the humans want?" President Lee asked. Minna smiled. "The same thing we've always wanted. To learn everything and share it with everyone who will use it for good." This philosophy proved to be humanity's greatest diplomatic tool. While the former council species hoarded their knowledge, humans freely shared advanced technology with anyone who joined the alliance. Former slave species suddenly had access to weapons, medicine, and tools that had been denied to them for centuries. The results were remarkable. Within months, liberated worlds were building their own fleets, establishing their own colonies, and contributing new innovations to the alliance. The galaxy's technological advancement accelerated faster than anyone had thought possible. But not every former council species chose cooperation. The Veltar Empire, stripped of its slave labor and crystal cities, refused to join the alliance. Instead, they retreated to their core worlds and declared eternal war on humanity. "Let them come," Admiral Park said when she received their declaration. "We've beaten them once. We can beat them again if necessary." Fleet Commander Jawano was less confident. The Veltar still have advanced technology and centuries of military experience. They might be more dangerous as desperate enemies than they were as overconfident rulers. "Maybe," Admiral Park agreed, "but they're fighting alone now. We have the entire galaxy behind us." The prediction proved accurate. When the Veltar launched their great crusade to restore council rule, they found themselves facing not just human ships, but vessels crewed by dozens of species they had once enslaved. The battle was over in hours, and the surviving Veltar finally accepted the new reality. The Gakron hive chose a different path. Queen Mother Vexara approached the alliance with an offer of conditional surrender. "My people will join your alliance," she announced during a diplomatic meeting on Neutral Space Station. "But we demand autonomous control over our biotechnology and our reproduction cycles." General Donghyun Ryu, who had led the liberation of several Gakron slave worlds, was skeptical. "How do we know this isn't a trick? The Gakron have been practicing deception warfare for millennia." "Because," Vexara replied, "you've already proven that you can destroy us completely if you choose to. If you wanted to exterminate the Gakron, you would have done it already. The fact that you haven't tells us that you meant what you said about freedom for all species." The negotiation took weeks, but eventually the Gakron hive became the alliance's first former council member to join voluntarily. Their bioships, reprogrammed to heal instead of destroy, became part of the Alliance's medical and exploration fleets. The economic reconstruction was perhaps the most complex challenge. The Council's economy had been based on exploitation, slave labor, resource extraction, and tribute payments. Building a fair system from that foundation required completely reimagining how galactic commerce worked. Dr. Hyojin Lim led the Economic Reconstruction Committee, working with representatives from 49 different species to create a system that would benefit everyone. The old system concentrated wealth in the hands of a few species while keeping everyone else in poverty, she explained to the Alliance Council. The new system needs to reward innovation, cooperation, and mutual benefit. The solution was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of tribute flowing upward to dominant species, trade would flow freely between equals. Instead of hoarding resources, successful civilizations would invest in developing less advanced partners. Instead of competition for dominance, the galaxy would embrace cooperation for mutual prosperity. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Former slave worlds that had barely survived under Council rule began to thrive as independent members of the Alliance. Trade routes that had been monopolized by the Council opened to everyone, creating new opportunities for commerce and cultural exchange. Intelligence Director So-Young Kim watched the transformation from her office on Earth, analyzing data streams from across the galaxy. The numbers told an incredible story. Poverty was declining, education was expanding, and technological innovation was accelerating at unprecedented rates. "It's working," she reported to President Lee. "Every metric we're tracking shows improvement. Life expectancy, economic growth, scientific advancement, cultural exchange. The galaxy is more prosperous and peaceful than it's been in recorded history." President Lee smiled, but he knew the work was far from over. "What about security threats? Are we seeing any organized resistance to the new order?" "Some," So-Young admitted. "Small groups of Council loyalists, mostly on worlds that benefited from the old system. But they're isolated and vastly outnumbered. The overwhelming majority of galactic civilization supports the Alliance. The most important test of the new order came when the Alliance faced its first major crisis. A plague outbreak on the former slave world of Techmore threatened to spread across multiple star systems, potentially killing millions. Under the old Council system, the infected world would have been quarantined and left to die to prevent the spread.